So today I want to talk about the leadership ecosystem and why it matters. And I have 3 points I want to cover with you. The first one is about the cultivation of presence. The second one is about how we use our body and all the energy inside the body. And the third one is relationship with whatever is outside the body. For the sake of this conversation, we're going to talk about the stakeholders. So the first one is about the cultivation of presence. It's often the one we keep for the last, but actually that's the one I want to start with here and now. I don't want you to be interested by the step number 3 or step number 2, because that's where you spend most of your time normally with your mind and trying to be careful with what you eat and sleep. But if you want to have an impact on your audience as a leader, as a manager, as someone who is taking strategic decisions and make impact on economic communities and social communities, you need to pay attention to the energy you carry and how this energy is distributed to the people in front of you and around you. And the best way to do that is to learn what's inside, what's available at all times, and how to reconnect with the energy which you really want to share with the people who matter to you, whether it is your employees, your colleagues, your family members, your clients, your partners. At all times, the quality of your energy says something about you and your ideas, much more than the word you're using to convey those ideas. To do that requires practice. To cultivate high quality energy requires to learn to concentrate, requires to learn to be with yourself, requires to be mindful. There are many words these days available and we're using. But the one I want to, which I believe is encapsulating all of this, is a capacity to be present to the situation at all times, irrespective of what's in front of you or inside you. As a leader, in all walks of life, whether you're a family leader, as a business leader, a political leader, a religious leader, doesn't matter. As long as you want to impact and engage others, you want to be able to follow your own energy. You want to follow your own energy. And for that, you need to know what's inside it, what is its composition. The second one is about the body, the quality of your heart, the quality of your guts, everything around the human form, the body you have. I know it's something we address most of the time from the perspective of competition and sports or from the aspect of the aesthetics. In this case, I really want to pay attention to the human body. The fact that we've been given a human body, which is not that distinct from many other live bodies available around us in nature. And if you bring this back into the world of business, which is pretty much a nice intellectual elaboration, a nice story we tell ourselves and how to interact with each other, at the end of the day, it's just us humans trying to build some things together. And paying attention to the quality of the energy we create, which we talked about in the first piece, it's also what is the input we invite into this body. So in the form of food, in the form of ideas, in the form of the quality of the energy we create through our movements, with sports and other physical activities, and also how we slouch in front of our TV, sometimes on the couch, and all these things. All of this is going to create the energetic system, which is going to inform the mind and the way we behave with other people. It's going to mirror the other energies, which we're going to discuss a bit later when we talk about your colleagues and other people of the business organization. The third one, which I think is the one you want to spend most time on, because that's also why we create number 1 and number 2. The third one, the quality of the third one and the possibility of the third one depends heavily on the quality of number 1 and number 2. So if you haven't spent time on number 1 and number 2, forget a little bit about number 3. But number 3 is the one we spend most of our time on since very early on in life in a conscious way. Is the quality of your mind and how you apply your mind and your competency in your relationship with people around you. As a leader in an organization or any other type of community, the way you design and relate to the people around you is tremendously important, not because you want to be manipulative and calculative. It's because you want to be able to rest on relationships which are going to carry all of you in what you want to create and the impact you want to have on your markets. So being able when you've been working on your presence and your body and your energy, to relate and to invest a lot of time in the way you relate to other people and exploring your personal, your psychological trajectory is going to allow you to trust the ideas coming from your mind, the emotions, the way you carry them, and similarly, trust how you echo, hear, or respond to the energy of the people surrounding you. The third one, which is all around your behavior and your relationship, can be subdivided in three pieces. I think for the sake of our conversation, it could be useful to divide it in three parts. The first part, I think is maybe the most important part, is a relationship you have with yourself. What type of dialogue you have with yourself. The second part is your dialogue and the conversation with people in your network, so your stakeholders. And the third one is your recovery patterns and the way you reconnect again and again to your center. So why does it matter within the context of our work together or our conversation, which are most of the time in the context of work, in the context of business, in the context of expansion, or in the context of crisis management? The quality of the conversation you have with yourself is going to influence tremendously the quality of the conversation you have with the people in front of you and around you. I invite you to ask yourself the following question. If you were to speak to the people around you, lead people the same way you lead yourself, meaning to speak to the people around you the same way you speak to yourself, what would be the impact? Big chances are that nobody will be around you anymore because nobody would tolerate the amount of pressure, the amount of toxicity that you impose in those conversations. So when you start, and in the work I do with my clients, and in this case you can do alone or you can do with anybody, when we start to pay attention to the quality of our inner dialogue, we start to become aware of how we're supporting ourselves and how we learn to appreciate and recognize the quality of our contribution and how much we do our best at all times, because nobody ever wakes up in the morning saying, I'm going to make a big mistake today and I'm going to be the worst person who ever walked the planet. Nobody does that. However, when we speak to ourselves, that's often how it feels. There is a lot of judgment and criticism. And even when sometimes we say to ourselves that we've been great, so there is a little bit of criticism embedded into that. So learning to be aware of the quality of your dialogue is key. And that's essential because then if we expand our inner dialogue, we go to the external dialogue. How do I relate with people around me according to who they are more than according to what I want them to be? That's also being in relationship with the ecosystem. You've never seen a tree relating with a flower or relating with an animal for anything else but what it is. And for some reason, us as human beings in our organization, we often relate with other people as if we had the magical power to transform them in what we want them to be. This doesn't happen, it will never happen. However, we can learn to be in relationship with them as they are. And that starts from where? To be in relationship with me as I am. When we do that, then we can start to nurture and develop networks and relationships based on how things are in the moment, not how they will be or how they were, but how they are now. And then start to build together something which is meaningful and impactful, based on our vision and the strategies we have in the organization, obviously. That's point number 2. The third and last point that I want to cover today is a conversation about how do you recover to this ecosystem, to an ecosystem which has integrity? How do you reconnect to what you know works for you and where you know you are the most generative as a human, as a leader, as someone who is learning it through life and who is developing? You learn to do that by learning to recover to your best self. And to recover to your best self, you first need to know how to be present to who you are. So we're going back to point number 1. When we're looking at, lately, at the point of making this recording, there is a big tennis player is retiring. I think it's Federer. And there's a lot of art, and before him was Serena Williams, who also retired. And many other people are retiring and dying also in the world at the same time. But how do these athletes become the best athletes within this time frame? Maybe they have practiced their moves million times, but more than that, because many people have done the same thing. More than that, they've been able to recover every single time, every single point to the best possible self with the best trust in who they are, so that they can show up on the court with the ability to apply their competency, be carried by their competency instead of carrying their competencies. And that's the whole point of developing, designing, nurturing, expanding, and learning to create a leadership ecosystem. I hope this has been useful, and let's continue the conversation.